Hey guys, it's Lindsay. Welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to do an update for my Pan That Palette series. Now you might remember that I chose to do the Lorac Pro Metal Palette for this year. I've been working on this palette since the beginning of January. And now before I forget, let me go ahead and show you what this palette looked like the last time I did an update. And then this is what my palette looks like now. So as you can probably tell, there have been some significant changes to the palette. So I'm just going to go through shadow by shadow and let you know what's going on with each one. We will start here first with the shade Quartz. This shade is just so tough for me to use, guys. I do have it in my inner corner today. I just don't reach for it, and my goal for this update was to hit the side of the pan, and I've got a long way to go on that one before I hit the side of the pan. So I'm going to say going forward with this shade, my only goal is to use it. Hopefully I can get at least most of it gone by the end of the year, but I'm not going to put any specific goal on that one just because it is so tough for me to use. Hopefully at some point I can figure out a good way to use it so that I actually have a chance of finishing it before the end of the year, but I haven't quite found that yet, so I'm just working on it, and it is going slowly but surely. And then the next one here, you see it was empty last month and it is not anymore, and that is because I took Gilded and Amber and mixed them up and then put them in the empty rose gold spot. As I just nick it, oh no. But I really did not like the shade Gilded all over my eyes on its own. I did like Amber, but I knew I was going to have a really hard time using Gilded, so I was mixing them together every time I was using them. So I thought, why not just use this empty little pan that I have here and create my own custom shade with these two shadows, and it worked really well. I don't know if you'll be able to see, but I do have a tiny little bit of pan on that one already. I didn't put a whole lot in there, so I think this shadow is going to go pretty fast, which is nice, and then once I'm done with it, I probably will just mix up another little batch of it just to get these two shades gone as quickly as I can. And then now back up to the shade Graphite. Oh, I should say, I do really like the mix of the two together. I think it's just a lot easier for me to use because I was just mixing the two together anyways, and I think the shade is really pretty as well, so that's a good just all over lid shade for me. Alright, now moving on to this shade called Graphite. I have some pretty significant changes in there. I've used that one quite a bit. As far as goals for that one for the next update, maybe have at least one of the corners gone. I think I can handle that. I don't think that will be too terribly difficult. And then here on Onyx, you guys know I am not working on that shade anymore. I hit my goal quite a while ago of just hitting pan. I don't like that shade at all. And I already talked about Gilded and Amber, so then moving on to Clover, and that is what I have all over my lids today. And I've noticed with this shade and with a couple of the other ones too, I think particularly Graphite, as soon as I hit a brush into the shadow, if it's a little bit more of a dense brush, it just kind of crumbles a lot of the shadow. It's really kind of a strange thing, so that's why there's so much more pan showing, because I really haven't used this shadow, I think maybe twice in the last month, and I feel it looks like I've used it maybe at least 5 or 6 times. So I'm not sad that it's gone, and these this palette isn't that old, so I wouldn't expect them to be crumbling like they are. Let me know if you've had that kind of issue with any of the Lorac shadows before. It's just very, very strange. And like I said, I particularly noticed it with Graphite and with Clover. But I have used Clover a couple times, as I said. It's just not something that I can, just easily swipe on my eyes and, go out the door. I do need to do a lot more blending and a lot more, and use a lot more different colors besides just the green. Whereas with something like the Amber and Gilded color mix, I can't just throw that on my eyes just by itself if I really need to get going somewhere soon. It's a really good, easy mom look, basically, whereas something like Clover really isn't. But I do really enjoy the shade. I do have it on my eyes today. And based on what I've got going right now, I actually might be able to finish it by the end of the year just because it is so crumbly, but we'll see. Then finally, the last shade in the palette, the shade Cobalt, this really pretty blue. I haven't touched it. I didn't think that I would. I've talked about how I do think it's a pretty shade in the past, but it's just not very practical for me. Way less practical than any of the other shades in the palette, so I don't think I will be using that much at all going forward, but that's okay. So that's a quick rundown of all the different shades in my palette. So far, so good. I'm still not really sick of this palette. I do really like the shade that I mixed. I was, like I said, really worried about using the shade Gilded, and I don't really like Quartz that much, but I have really enjoyed the Graphite shade and then the shade that I made myself. And I just really like the formula on these shadows, even though some of them are crumbling, which I said was weird. But like I said, I'm not sick of the palette at all. I have no problem using this as my everyday go-to palette. So yeah, so far so good with this palette. I'm actually really proud of myself for how often I've been able to put on makeup the last 2 months since I had my baby. After I had my son 5 years ago, and I've talked about this I think a little bit on my channel before, I really just kind of gave up on my appearance and just myself in general. So then now after having my daughter, I'm really trying not to lose myself this time around. I just think I'm a much happier person in general 2 months postpartum now than when I was 2 months postpartum with my son, which I'm so excited about. And I think as silly and as you know, maybe conceited or narcissistic as this sounds, putting on makeup really helps. But you know, it is what it is, and it has helped me out a lot, and I definitely don't wear makeup every single day. There's no way that at this point right now that I could do that, but I have been wearing it, and I am still getting through this palette, so I'm really proud of myself for how much progress I've made. I think then that is it for this update. Definitely check back in the next month or so and I will have another one of these posted so you can see my progress. And I will go ahead and post my playlist up there so you can go see where I started at the beginning of the year all the way up to now if you are interested. And of course I would love it if you would subscribe to my channel. We can also connect on Instagram. I will have my link listed down below, and I will see you guys on my next video. Thanks for watching. Bye!